Hey everyone, so this is going to be a video on how to use macros and VBA in Excel to automate tasks that you regularly have to do. So the first thing that we're going to want to do if we're going to automate anything is we're going to want to use macros. And in order to do that, we're going to need the developer tab active at the top. By default, if you just installed Microsoft Excel and you haven't used developer ever, you might not have the developer tab available. It'll probably just say home through view and then nothing else after that. So if we need to make that available, if you don't already have it, in the 2007 version of Excel, you can click on this flag, go to Excel options, and then under popular, you can click show developer tab. And so you can check that to say show developer tab and then hit OK, and then developer will show up. If you have a different version of Excel that's not this exact version, you might click on File and then Excel options and then customize. Yours might say customize the ribbon, and then it'll look something similar to this, but it'll probably have more things on the right-hand side. One of them will say developer, and you can check the box. It'll be somewhere about here. You check the box that says developer and hit OK, and then developer will be available up here. And so with that tab available on your ribbon, the developer tab, you can now do things like recording and writing codes in here. You can insert buttons. So if I wanted to put in a checkbox, that checkbox could turn on. So part of the coding could say, if this box is checked, then do something else. And so if you're writing like a program to pull some certain information, you can put in here, add additional information, click yes. And then it'll pull in even more information if they check that. And if they didn't, then it won't add that more information. So it'll be things like that. So there's all kinds of tools that you can use with these buttons available in the developer tab. So I thought we should walk through an example just so you can kind of see the basics of how this works. So let's say for whatever task you need, you're constantly trying to highlight a cell. So you need to highlight the cell yellow. And so you might have to do that one, you might have to do that one. Or let's say you need to highlight it yellow and then you need to go back and do some other data thing or some formula, or you have to be constantly, rather than going back and forth between home to highlight it, you click over here, you're over here, you go back and forth. That's a lot of clicking and a lot of dragging around, and I don't want to be doing that so much with my mouse because I like to do everything from my keyboard, and using the mouse and switching back and forth from the mouse and keyboard slows me down. So I want to make it as fast as possible. So what I can do is go to developer, and the easiest way to do this is to record a macro, and I'll call the macro yellow because I'm going to make it highlight cells yellow. And then I want to assign it a shortcut key on the keyboard so that I don't have to use the mouse. I can just use control and then some letter or whatever, similar to how control S does save and control C does copy, control Z does undo. I can assign something here, control something, that will do highlight yellow. And so the one that I use for macros probably the most frequently is control Q, because control Q isn't assigned to anything that I ever use, so it doesn't matter to me if I'm overriding kind of the already assigned shortcut on Excel. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it a description, and I'm going to call it, if I can spell, highlights cell yellow. And so now the description in the coding, so later when I go look back at this, I'm going to say, what the heck macro is this? What is it doing? It's going to have a description that says highlights the cell yellow. So I'll just know by looking at it, oh, okay, this is my macro that highlights the cell yellow. And then, so I already have control Q assigned on my shortcut key, and I'm naming it yellow, and I'm storing it on this workbook. I can, later in a different video, I'll show you how to make macros that are accessible to everyone, not just this particular file. So when I save it, I can go open a different Excel file and use the same macro. So I hit OK. So now you'll notice this changed from record macro to say stop recording. And so because it says stop recording, now I know that it's currently recording a macro. And so everything that I do, if I click somewhere, I'm not going to, but if I click somewhere, it's going to add that into the code. So the code will say, click over here. And if I were to, clicking on these different tabs doesn't do anything, luckily. But if I were to change the font or something, then the code will say, change the font. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the yellow thing because I'm writing a code that is going to highlight a cell yellow. And so by clicking on this, I just highlighted that cell yellow. And now the code that's being recorded right here under this recording is writing in the code that says highlight cell yellow, because I just clicked on highlight the cell yellow. And so it recorded that. Now that I've done that, that's the only thing that I wanted in my macro. So I'm going to hit stop recording. Now it's not recording anymore, so I can click anywhere and it doesn't matter. It's not doing anything. And then I can go click on my macros. It'll show all the macros I've done. That's the only one I've done. Yellow, it's right there. That's the one I just made. So now I can hit edit and I can see what it says. So I wrote a macro called yellow. Every macro starts with the word sub, because it's a subroutine within the codes. And then yellow macro is just the name of it. The description is highlights the cell yellow. Great, now I know what it is. Keyboard shortcut, just so I know for future reference, keyboard shortcut is Control-Q. That's important because if I assign a different shortcut later, I might forget which macro goes to which shortcut. And so this is really helpful to say keyboard shortcut is Control-Q. And now the code says with selection, so whatever happens to be selected, in this case it happened to be G3, but if I clicked over here, now E3 is selected or C14 is selected. Whichever one happens to be selected, it will make the interior solid with some color, and that color equals that number, and that number represents the color yellow. If I were to change this number right here, it would change the color that's being highlighted. And then no tints, no shades, nothing like that. And then it ends, this end with, so this says the with part basically says do all of these things together, and all of those things together are the interior of that cell. And then it says end with, so now do other things, and the only thing left to do, because we've highlighted the cell, is to end our code. And so I could, if I wanted to, I could go up here and hit play, and that will run the macro. You can see now that cell is yellow. Go over here, and then I can run play, and now that cell became yellow. Or because I already created the shortcut Control-Q here, it's really easy to just do Control-Q, 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 and then it'll highlight cells yellow whenever I want. If I wanted to re-record a new macro that says make them blank again and not yellow, I could do a whole nother macro and make a different shortcut and do that. If I wanted to, I can write, with this kind of useful tools, you can write codes that can do all kinds of different things. But this is just the basic intro, so here's how you write macros in Excel. So hopefully that helps you with any projects that you're doing, and look forward to more videos that are coming out on more advanced topics. I'm going to go through slowly individual projects that we can work on, that you can use for examples to follow, or you could copy them verbatim from what I do if it's something that you happen to need a lot. So this is just the intro version. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below or send me an email. Thanks for watching.